Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Good morning. This is Ellen coming to you from the tropical island of St. Bart's. And today we have a very special guest on Light Talk.
And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Fleur Noir Resort in Palm Springs, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers.
And sister.
I'm sorry. Where exactly are you again?
These are the Fleur Noir.
The Fleur Noir Resort in Palm Springs,
Just
California.
noir is fine. Fleur Noir.
Fleur Noir. That's what I said.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm a New York Jew. How am I going to say
Me
Fleur
too.
Noir?
Come on.
My last name is Jacques. I should have a damn accent. I don't. What can I tell you?
I don't know.
So you're right. Anyway, welcome everyone to episode 301. And let me tell you something. I am still coming off the high from last week's New Year's and 300th anniversary show. Isn't that amazing?
It was amazing. Amazing.
You know, I was thinking about it. Do you realize that was the first time that the entire Lumen family was together in one place?
Virtually, yes, we were.
Yeah, virtually. Yes. Virtually. And it was really funny. Who could have imagined that we would make it through the whole show without one argument? That was a lot of fun. Yeah,
it was great.
So I think for episode 600, we all fly down to St. Bart's.
It's a date.
With our walkers. Hey, for anyone who missed it, check out episode 300 of Light Talk with the Lumen Brothers and Sisters, and you'll get to hear it. The insanity, it was a lot of fun and heartwarming, and I cried for 3 days. However, let's get to the reason why we're starting off 2023 with a bang. We are honored to have lighting designer and Tony Award winner Jeff Croiter with us today. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. Where are you coming from, Jeff, today? Where are you speaking from?
I'm right outside New York City.
Are you working on a show or something?
No, I'm my office is up here. I've actually, during the pandemic, I kind of relocated my office to outside. It's the opposite of what most people would do. Actually, maybe not. Maybe that's what everyone's done. That's why no one's in New York anymore.
That's right.
So I'm up here prepping 2 shows that are coming up very quickly in the new year.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. And Ellen,
Absolutely.
Why don't you introduce Jeff to our audience?
I'd love to. Jeff Croiter is a New York-based lighting designer with over 25 years of experience working on Broadway, off-Broadway, in dance, opera, special events, regional theater, touring productions, and circuses, including the Big Apple Circus. He won a Tony Award for his work on Peter and the Starcatcher, while his other Broadway credits include Cost of Living, Freestyle Love Supreme, Bandstand, Falsettos, Newsies, Holiday Inn, Penn and Teller, Something Rotten, Jekyll and Hyde, The Pee Wee Herman Show, and more. He has worked in way too many regional theaters and on too many off-Broadway shows to list. He has been the lighting designer for Jennifer Muller and The Work since 1996. He is also a producer of the hit web comedy Submissions Only and is an executive producer of Four Walls' Light Humour series. In addition to his Tony, he has won Hughes and Bass Awards and has been nominated for Drama Desk, Outer Critic, Lortel, Ovation, and other awards. Jeff Croiter, welcome to Light Talk.
Thank you so much for having me again. I want to say how impressed I am at you all for doing this, for doing 300, now 301. It is so many have tried. It's so hard. And for people who don't do it, it's so hard. So congratulations on just making it happen.
Well, our lighting careers are over, so we have a lot of time, basically. Unlike you, out there doing hundreds of shows on Broadway. Oh, my God. Anyway, it's great to have you here. So,
our podcast is #1 with a bullet in the Faroe Islands.
That's right.
That's
I don't know if have you ever been to the Faroe Islands, Jeff?
I don't think so, but
all right. Well,
who knows?
do yourselves a favor. Do yourself a favor and make it out there.
Okay.
We actually have the Light Talk Hall of Fame out there. Yeah, I mean, we have all of our guests are there. There's a bust of like Ken Billington and Hal Binkley, and we'll have Jeff Croiter bust, and you're gonna have to come out there, okay? So that we can unveil it.
Everybody should have a bust of Ken Billington, is what I say.
Absolutely, absolutely. So why don't we get started with the questions, and I'll kick it off. What was your path to becoming a lighting designer?
I was in high school. Like so many in high school, did all sorts of things in theater. And I tried to be in shows for a little bit and was not good enough, mostly we had stage fright. Still, I don't like talking in front of more than like 4 or 5 people, even though I do sometimes. But I started doing all sorts of things in high school. Actually, I'm going to go back a little further. My parents ran a community theater, so that's really where it started. And I would, just hang out and do whatever there on any of the shows. Moving scenery, holding curtains out of the way, hanging lights. Whatever there was to do, I would help out and try to do. And then, the summer between my junior and senior year of high school, I did an internship at the Berkshire Theater Festival and just sort of fell in love with the atmosphere and the people and understood that what lighting really was and understood that there could be, I was still very young, but saw that there was a career there, not necessarily that I would be doing it for the rest of my life, which I think not that long ago committed to. But that lighting was something that I was interested in doing, and I enjoyed the people, and I enjoyed just being there and being in the room. But in high school, still I played sports in high school. I wanted to be a rock star when I was younger, not a musician, mind you, rock star. And my brother became not a rock star, but my brother is a professional musician. So he and I used to jam in the basement. He's a drummer and I was a guitarist. I suppose I still am. I still do play the guitar.
Cool.
I'm an excellent bad guitarist. That's
well,
where
most are, by the way.
Yeah. Well, wait a minute, David, what do you play?
I play keyboards.
Well, there you go. And Zach plays bass. So the Late Talk band is coming together.
Jeff, that's right. The Lumenoids, which is our in-house band, which actually you hear us all playing on the theme song.
Oh, I was wondering who played that. There you go.
Well, the guitar part is played by Zach, but Zach's also playing the bass part in there. So it'd be great to get a second guitar track. So if I send you the tracks, Can you record one for us?
Of course.
Awesome! Awesome!
It's my secret or not so secret dream to form a designer rock band. With bunch of us who can play Joe's Pub one night. We'd have to have guest singers.
Oh, that would be great. There was
sing.
That band that played at LDI. The one that used to have Bruce Jordahl and those people.
Yes. That's the high end band.
Well,
but it's not really all high end people. But
what did they call themselves? Something ridiculous. I think they were called the Swinging Johnsons until they played for. I think they were until they played for Robe. They played for Robe and called themselves the Well Hungarians.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
Sorry.
I love it.
Well done.
Okay, we digress, Jeff. You may think this is a classy show, but you knew what you were getting into, hopefully.
I do. What is classy anyway?
What is classy?
Right.
Teach his own.
Well, that leads us right into Penn and Teller. They're classy.
They are Kelly.
So 2 questions about Penn and Teller. Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with them? And are there special challenges for a lighting designer working with magicians?
Well, I will take the second one first. There are challenges, but what's interesting is that, interesting to me is that my style of lighting kind of lent itself to magic and to what they do. And by that, what I mean by that is I like to focus the eye on what we as a production want to see and away from things that we don't want people to see. And that is, that's an important part of magic and lighting magic. The great thing about Penn and Teller is that they, as magicians, first of all, they're as much comedians as they are magicians, I think. But they don't mind in many cases telling you how it's done or telling you how they do it. And I've said this so many times, so many people, you can know how they do every trick that they do, but good luck doing it. You can't. I mean, they are so skilled at what they do that you can know it every step of the way and you still can't do it. So I met them when they were asked to do a run on Broadway. Their original off-Broadway producers approached them and said, how about a Broadway run? And this is, many, many decades after their original off-Broadway production. And they hired a New York director to work with them to shape a show. And they decided they wanted a New York lighting designer as well. And the director and the producer both decided that they wanted to call me. I have relationships with both of them. And I got a phone call and, they said, would you be interested in helping Penn and Teller come to Broadway? And I was like, who says no to something like that? What we ended up doing, we actually set up in their giant theater in Vegas, a little miniature version of the Marriott Marquis, the Broadway theater that we ran. And I lit a couple of tricks and basically, auditioned, and they said, okay, great. And then it went a little further than that. It went well enough on Broadway, and there was also a set designer that came on board at this time, also Dan Conway. So they decided based on the Broadway production that they wanted to redo the set or most of the set for the Vegas show, and also do a little lighting upgrade as well. So they pulled me out there to redo their rep plot. So first of all, I will say that they are two of the smartest people, if not the smartest people I've ever worked with. They challenge each other and challenge everyone around them to find the best and be the best and just be interesting and exciting. And it's, that's the dream. That's my dream, to work with people who inspire me to be better and to do better work. And so my relationship with them now, and, they have a lighting designer who's there full time with them, Matt Staniak, who has been with them for many, many years, longer than I have. And so I redid their rep plot, and Matt and I speak every once in a while about, potential upgrades to it here and there. We've made some changes, over the years. When I went out there originally, teched the whole show, and now on a day-to-day basis, because the show changes all the time. There's no one show for Penn and Teller. It's different. If not every night, certainly every week, there's a different lineup and different magic. And Matt is responsible for all of that.
Yeah, that's great. I also thought it was really interesting that they came to Broadway and that it translated so well.
As far as Las Vegas shows go, it's a theatrical evening. It's a theatrical performance, but that's why they hired John Rando to direct it, was to make it a Broadway show and to make it really truly theatrical, and to give it a little bit more of an arc than it may otherwise have, and to shape it, to give it some shape. And that's what I did. That's a huge part of what I did, was to shape the evening, both emotionally and also metaphysically, physically, I guess.
What would happen if some other famous Vegas magician called you and said, do you want to do my show too? Could you do that?
I could. I don't have a non-compete with them. I technically don't have it. I never sign anything that says I can't tell everyone in the world, how they do everything they do, but they know I would never. So
it's like career suicide if you did something like that.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, it's not only knowing how to do it, but not being able to do it. I know how some people do some things, and I still can't figure out how they do it, even knowing how they do it when you see it.
I will say that knowing how Teller does some of his sleight of hand, I can look for it, as you just said, Alan. I could knowing what's going to happen without knowing when it's going to happen. I could watch him waiting for it and then realize I missed it.
Right, exactly.
There are certain tricks of theirs that I purposely didn't want to know because there was no reason for me to know. And I remember one of them in tech. I think either one of their, I think it was their stage manager, came out and basically said, well, we were talking about how to tech something, and she said, well, we can just blah, 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 instead of, setting up the whole thing. And I was like, whoa, that's how that's done? No way. You're kidding. I had no idea. Anyway, I truly love everyone around them also. I love, when I get to go out there and spend some time with them, I enjoy it. Not just for the two of them, who are, obviously incredible, but their whole team they're just the most professional at what they do. And again, that's the dream, to work with people who care about what they do as much as you do.
Which leads us right into the next question, which is Jennifer Muller, who is a wonderful choreographer. I have always loved her work. and you've worked with her for a long time as well. And dance lighting is obviously very different from magic. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Jennifer Muller taught me how to be a lighting designer. I mean, I went to school and I did a lot of what I thought was interesting theater and some dance. But it wasn't until I met her that I really started to figure out who I was as a lighting designer and what my aesthetic was, and also just how to work. I've started working with her in 1996. And she took me to Europe. That's what my first engagement with her was, jumping around Russia, Europe, and including Siberia. She took me all the way to Siberia. And she understands light better than almost anyone I've worked with. And it's, I remember my first tech, I thought I was all prepared to work with Jennifer, who obviously she had a reputation of wanting it the way she wants, which, like everyone should. That's not a bad reputation, but she was very specific about how her pieces look, and her light is incredibly important to her in the storytelling of her dance. And I thought I knew what she wanted, and I sat down for my first tech, and basically everything I turned on was wrong. And I like completely. And I could have, and I wanted to, said thanks very much for this, but obviously we're not the right match.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's like other lighting designers who have long-term collaborations like that too, like Howell. Didn't he have a long-term collaboration with David Parsons?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, he was part of the company, I think.
Yeah. And like Ken Tabachnik has worked with Stephen Petronio for a long time. And I think there's a lot of these lighting designers, choreographer collaborations that last really, forever.
Ken Tabachnik worked with Jennifer before, I think right before two designers before me. And then went to law school, actually. I think that's I think the reason he stopped working for Jennifer is that he went to school. I'm not sure. Early in the beginning of the LED Lico, one of my first forays into the luster, it was an all LED rig, and I was so scared to go into a tech with her who was who lived in the incandescent world of lighting. But the other thing that's interesting about her is, boom color. Like I would pick boom color, side light color, 4, 5, or 6, lights on each side to work for the piece, and invariably, halfway through, maybe not even halfway through, maybe 5 minutes into the tech of a piece, I would change half the color. I would turn it on. She would say, no, that's the wrong blue, and she was that specific. That blue's too green. That blue's too warm. So she knew color, and she knew when she didn't want color. So sitting down and working with her and an all LED rig, I did not know how it was going to go. But fortunately, what ended up happening was that we turn a light on, and she'd say, no, we have to redo the boom color. And I said, like, what do you want? She said, the blue's too red. I was like, okay, watch this. And dial up a little green. And she was like,
yeah,
seriously?
Whoa, magic.
Yeah. It was like, so then, then of course, like the downside, this is getting into a whole other story here, but the downside of LEDs is that you can spend hours and days just like tweaking color like that. So, you still have to have a little bit of a head start.
Hey, so let's talk a little bit about Peter and the Starcatcher. That was a great production. Wonderful lighting, yet deceptively simple looking. Can you tell us a little bit about that show?
Sure. Well, I will say there's a whole plot lines, Ellen, at Live Design. So I'm going to give a plug to Live Design. And we spent probably far too long, but no, I mean, a very long time dissecting the light plot of that. So I encourage people to check it out. I think it's still up there. Okay, so it's interesting that Peter and the Starcatcher follows your Jennifer Muller question, because so much of what I did on Peter and the Starcatcher actually comes more from the dance world than it does from the theater world. A lot of Starcatcher is dance oriented, so what I brought to Starcatcher was a little bit of a lot of the work that I did in for modern dancers and modern choreographers, but also I did a couple of shows not so long before that. And so I guess what my point is that everything sort of built up to that point where I found a show and a show found me. I was at the right time in my life and my career to do it. And it was looking for what I had to offer it. I think anyone could have lit that show and made it look spectacular. But I don't think anyone would have done what I did. In it, exactly what I did. The work of mine on that show is specific to me, which is part of why I loved it so much. That's not to say that it isn't. Everything I do is specific to me, but there was something about Starcatcher that was me like taking a step artistically. And it just coincided with my artistic step coincided with a show that was pretty amazing that people wanted to see. So I got, it moved up. It moved very quickly from one place to another, and still, it's still done all over, which is exciting. But my I joined that production and that project very early on, where we, there were actors on a stage with rope and almost nothing else, and we figured out how light would play along and how light would or would not help tell the story of what the space is, and will light be the hatch that somebody jumps through, and can light be a hallway or a doorway? And the answer was yes to all of those things. And it was the partnership with two directors. There were two directors on that project, Roger Reese, who sadly passed away a few years ago, and Alex Timbers. And it was through the very specific work with them that the entire show turned out to be the way it was, including the lighting. With a different director, it would have been a different experience for me. Because you need that partnership. I will elaborate. Because in order for light to be the hole in the hatch in the floor, or to be the doorway, the director, in this case, directors, need to be on board with that, and to be game to play around with light in that way, and also to spend the time, because it does take some time.
Well, I was going to jump to Freestyle Love Supreme. And it seems like everything we're talking about just kind of leads to the next thing. How do you work in that kind of improvisational world, that kind of hip hop world? And what's it like working with them?
Again, smart people. I mean, I don't mean to make it sound like that's the most important thing to me, but it all has to start somewhere. Smart people who care about lighting. It's not just turn the lights on and have a nice day. Penn and Teller in particular, cares deeply about the look of the show. Tommy Kail cares about what the show looks like and is willing to not just spend time like taking it, to spend time having the discussion and talking about the look of the show. It is important to him. And that, that's exciting to me. That those are the people that I enjoy working with. When they love lighting the way I do, then, it's a good match. And not everyone does.
But I'm assuming the show really is not scripted.
The show is not scripted at all. There's nothing about the show that's scripted. That's what I thought. But there are sections of the show that are repeated every night. So they don't it's not just 5 people walking up on stage and doing whatever they want to do. I think there are 7 or 8 now set songs, and they do 5 a night. Every word that comes out of their mouth, every sound that they make is different every night. But in some of those songs, I make them stand in the same place for 8 counts here and 8 counts there. So there are big X's on the stage, and they hit their marks. So they hit their marks and they know the counts. And so while a lot of the lighting, I would say a quarter of the lighting is truly made up every night, like busked from scratch, like never the same. The rest of it, maybe that's not the right split. Maybe it's like 60% is set, 40% is busked, a little less than that probably. But there's enough of it that is the same. Like the opening the lighting is the same for the opening every time. Again, the words are different, but the lighting is the same because the dynamic is the same and the beat is similar. And
that's really interesting. If it's busked 60%, who is your operator, and shouldn't they be also co-designer? I mean, and I think this is just a general question about busking.
Yeah.
Who's the designer?
It's actually busked. It's busked like 30%, I would say. So it's mostly set. So Andrew Garvis was the lighting designer who took them, who was with them off Broadway, on Broadway, and took them on the road as well. And now someone else is doing it in Vegas.
I want to jump in there right now. That is an SMU alum.
Oh, yes, that's right. SMU alum.
There you go.
That's right. I think that's how I met him through another SMU alum, Mary Kate Burke, who's a director who runs a theater in North Carolina.
Wonderful person.
Yeah. And I used to do, maybe used to, I don't know. It's so hard to say what used to is anymore, but I've done a lot of work at the Dallas Theater Center, and would go back if they asked me.
Please.
And I love that. I love working there. Again, without like, I mean, I don't care. I can give away. I don't care what people know about how Freestyle Love Supreme goes together. While it is busked every night, there are tricks even there. So there's about, I don't know, at this point, a couple of hundred, at least 100 set looks in the console with a touchscreen. There's a touchscreen. So one of the songs is called A Day in the Life. And when they were running in New York, it starts with them waking up in the morning and it ends with them walking into the theater at night. So there's always a bedroom, unless, they wake up on the street, which is then like busked. So, but it always starts in the bedroom. There's always some kind of trend. There's always walking down the streets of New York. So we have like the bedroom cue that's preset, the walking down the street, a subway station, subway moving, taxi moving, bus, Central Park, Starbucks. So there's all of these things that, when the performers go to a certain place, whoever's on the lighting console goes there with them. And then on top of that, they can like break out of their subway experience and end up on Mars. And so, like there's leeway to hit a few buttons and all of a sudden the lighting is like weird and Back to the Future or something. So it's fun. It's exciting. It is different every night. It was a fun challenge for all of us to put together. And the other crazy thing is that we didn't know how much. When we sat down to tech the show, we thought 100% of it was going to be busked. And then as we kind of put it together, we were like, oh, this is the same every night. This can be the same. And it was actually our stage manager, Cody, who said, at one point, do you want me to call some of these cues? We're like, oh yeah, we can. We can actually have some. It doesn't have to be made up. Like the whole thing doesn't have to be made up. Anyway, so it is. It's improv in many ways, but lighting wise, not 100% improv.
Okay, so how did you survive the pandemic?
Well, I was one of those people who thought things would come back for I spent 2 weeks we'll be back to work soon. And so I underestimated things at first. So that was the beginning of the pandemic for me. And then, then I sort of, as things got worse and as the word came over the airways that maybe theaters were not going to reopen very quickly, I have to say, I was an optimist about a lot of it. I mean, I had a feeling that it wasn't going to come back very quickly, but I still thought by the summer we'd be back to work. So, this is still the first month in. So I was like, great, I'm going to take some time, and I don't get much time off. It's going to be a couple of months maybe, and I'll be back to work. So I started, doing things around the house, and it wasn't so long after. Once we realized that there would be no summer and probably no fall, I'm not someone who sits around. I love free time, and I have hobbies, and I like doing that sort of thing, but I don't I like knowing what my next thing is going to be. And the idea of not knowing what my next thing was going to be didn't sit well with me. And I didn't, I think I was depressed about it for 5 minutes. And then I was like, what am I going to do? And so, I started doing things. We started a webcast. I'll quickly tell that story. I was a guest, much like I am a guest now. Early in the pandemic, I was a guest on a few webcasts, and I got off of one of them, and I walked out and I said to my wife, that was terrible. That was awful. There must be a better way to do this. And she said, great, do it. And I said, you know what? Let me ask a couple of people. And I sent 2 emails, one to someone who I'm not going to say because he said that it would never work. And then the other to Al Rodella at Four Wall Entertainment. And Al said, interesting, let me speak to someone. I'll call you right back. And 10 minutes later, he called me back and he said, Four Wall is very interested. I'll put you in touch with someone tomorrow. And the next day, I was on a call with Drew Quinones at Four Wall Entertainment. And he said, this is great. We were looking for something like this. Can you start on Sunday? And I said, no, we're going to wait. We're going to take a week and figure out what this is and, figure out what we want to do and who we want to talk to. So, we started the next Sunday and it was live. It was the Four Wall Sunday Roundtable live. We did 50 at the time. We've now done 50 episodes. It was pandemic related. It was not about how people work or what kind of lights they turn on or their favorite gam color. That was the last thing we wanted to talk about because you do that and because Ellen at Live Design does that. And this was strictly about how people were weathering whatever storm we happened to be in. And that storm changed over the course of a year. It was very different from where we began to where we end. Our conversations were quite different. And then, we tried to, and sometimes the conversations were not fun. And I have to say I don't think those episodes were the strongest because I'm not a news person. I like to talk, about what people are doing, and it wasn't just lighting designers either. I have to say it was, stage managers, production managers, anyone who people weren't talking to. I feel like the actors had a voice and I feel like producers, directors, a lot of people had a voice and nobody was talking to people who work in live entertainment production about what was going on in their minds. And that's why we did it. And that's what we wanted to do. And as soon as people started going back to work and we couldn't get 4 guests to commit, we were like, I think we're done. I think that's it.
Good. I love that. It's amazing that you guys did that because it's a service. It's a public service. And you're right. I mean, designers did not have a voice and stage managers and, everybody in the technical and we all have friends who basically, some of them gave up. They just basically got out of the business and haven't come back. Yeah. We were talking to Ethan about this, and it's kind of sad, but it's so great that you guys did this with Four Wall. And I listened to many of those shows, by the way, because it was great. It was wonderful. It was beautiful that you were able to do that. And I think your wife was really wise to encourage you to do it. So
I appreciate that. Thanks for listening. And thank you, Ellen, for being a guest.
Yeah.
And also helping us
fun.
find guests. I mean, I would like write Ellen, middle of the week and be like, hey, I'm looking for this person, like who fits this bill? And she'd send me a list of like 4 people. And Four Wall was very gentle. They let Drew and I do what we wanted to do. I mean, there was some input from them, but for the most part, they let us do what we wanted to do.
So did that webcast lead into Light Humour?
It did. So prior to the roundtable, Four Wall had done these like little, very short animation videos about like how to like rigging 101, like lighting 101, like rudimentary, like stick figure, basically educational, tongue-in-cheek educational. And we had riggers on the Four Wall Sunday Roundtable, and we played this like rigging 101 video. And, the riggers all thought it was funny and it went over well. So Drew said, what if we, did that more and played a different, little animation before each roundtable? I was like, yeah, that's great. I know someone who used to do these kinds of things. And why don't I approach him and see if he's interested in working with us? Because I knew he was, he's a lighting designer and creative. Corey Paddock, who is a lighting designer, but also he's a writer. So I called Corey and I pitched him the idea, and he said, "Yeah, that sounds interesting. Like, what do you think it is?" And we like threw some ideas back and forth, and the idea sort of grew to the point that it was actually far more complicated than doing one every week and having a little 30-second thing before the roundtable. We actually had some like ideas, and I remember Drew, Corey, and I were on a call, just like coming up, pitching a bunch of ideas to the things we could do. And it had happened that Four Wall has an animator on staff. Skylar Smith is skilled animator and does all of the artistic work. So the 4 of us really, Corey, Drew, and Skylar and I put the whole thing together every episode. As a lighting designer, I'm a storyteller. I mean, that's what we do. My little piece of storytelling is the lighting design. As a lighting designer, I feel like I'm a little bit cinematographer, a little bit editor, and a little bit, director. And so, the animation projects, the light humor, there is no director most of the time. So actually, my wife has directed a couple of them for us. But for the most part, there is no director. Corey and I kind of do that. So it's like I'm the executive producer, and it's more like the TV model, where like I'm a showrunner of these cartoons, and I love it. I love every second of it, and I love the four wall so game. And we really set out to do like one every month, and it's going to turn out to, I bet, 3 a year at this point, but because they're hard. it does, we actually it takes a long time. It actually takes a long time to put these things out.
They're very clever. Everybody should look at them. They're very, very clever. One just came out where a guy gets called like 25 years later of being on a tour with someone, and he says, "Hey, I need somebody. You want to come out?" And he gets there and he says, "Oh, where are the dimmer racks?" And the girl goes, "Oh my God, we forgot them." And he goes, "Where did you forget them?" And she says, "In 1999.
So, Jeff, where can somebody find these? I mean, is there a link?
Yeah, there's Four Wall Entertainment's Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Great.
And if you search
Four Wall
Light
Entertainment,
humor,
right?
Appropriately
Beautiful.
Light humor. All of the characters are four wall blue color. So that's,
Got it.
that color, that four wall blue.
Well, can I just interrupt here a second? This is sort of an aside, but, Jeff has mentioned his wife several times in this podcast so far. And I have a wonderful little story I would like to tell. Where were we that night? Were we at USITT?
We were in Louisville.
With David Johnson, I think.
Yeah, and Marion. And Marion also.
And Marion. And I was talking to Jeff. We were talking to Jeff, and some play came up, and I said, "Oh, I just saw that play." And Jeff says, "Well, what did you think of it?" And I said, "Well, I thought it was really interesting. It's about a guy who's like, I don't know, what is he, Dionysus or something, and he's doing women's gardens, and he's also doing the women." And I said, "I thought it was great, but," I said, "there were 4 actresses, and one of them was ready to drive me out of the theater." I said, "I'm sure she's a good actress, but she was just she was overplaying her role, and I did not like her in this. I thought she was miscast and not so good." He goes, "Oh, well, which one was that?" So I told him, and he says, "Well, did you like any of them?" And I said, "Oh my God, yes." I said, "The one that plays like the little fairy with the overgrown garden that she doesn't want him to cut or do anything to." I said, "She was adorable. She was fabulous. She was the best thing in the show." He says, "That's good. That's my wife."
There you go. The best thing in the
Kate
show.
Weatherhead. We'll give her a plug. She is adorable, and she's a great actress and a writer and a director, and puts up with Jeff. So what could be bad?
Yep.
Beautiful.
That's right.
Beautiful.
That's exactly right. All those things are true.
Very
She puts up with me, so she wins some award.
That's great. So listen, we ask all of our guests this question, and it's very important because a lot of students listen to our show, a lot of young designers, people just breaking into the industry. What advice do you have for young people entering our industry today? Because it's a very difficult time, as we all know.
Yeah.
A lot of things are changing.
Yeah. I mean, it's never easy to break into this business. I mean, it's the number one, it's the arts. I mean, where lighting designers are artists, and it is the arts, and it is hard to just like find a footing. But aside from like telling, young people who enter this business often ask me, how do I get work? And, I still have to ask myself that question every morning. So that's there's no magic trick nor formula. Penn and Teller aren't going to like whip up anything, and all of a sudden you're going to be a working lighting designer in this world. It's not easy. And if you don't like that, then the freelance world is not for you. That's my advice. Like, understand what this is before you dive in. A little story, a small story. I did the Helmsley internship many years ago. And I speak to several of the interns who, as they finish, I'll sit down and have coffee with them, or we'll have at least a phone call every once in a while. And I sat down, this is a few years ago, this is before the pandemic. I sat down with the intern who was leaving. And she said, I'm coming to the end of the internship, and I'm starting to like wake up with that pit in my stomach about what I'm going to do next. And I said, well, get used to that, because if you don't like it, you're doing the wrong thing. Because almost 30 years in, I still have that every day about something. If it's not where the next job is, it's about what's going to happen on the job I'm doing. So, understand, learn how to manage your anxiety. That's another one. But here's the real advice. The real advice is if you do this and you want to do this and you want to be successful, understand that you're running a small business. That you're not just an artist. You are a small business person, and understand how to do your taxes and understand how to save money and start contributing to that IRA now. Don't wait, even if whatever the amount of money is, put it away, a SEP IRA, and understand the money side of it. Like they teach you. Not everyone teaches this very well. They sort of teach you how to be an artist in schools. What they don't teach you how to do is be a small business owner, and that's what you are if you're a freelance designer. So that's my advice. Understand that, and also be a good assistant first. This is my own personal. This is what I would say. Not everyone would go down this route. My personal feeling is that you should start as an assistant and watch other people do it and sit next to people, see the mistakes that they make, learn from their triumphs and listen to the conversations that they have with the director and with choreographers and with other designers. You'll only learn, and then you'll meet people. And I'm not just saying it because that's what I did. I did do that. And and I was very lucky, and I met some pretty great people. And the people that I met assisting on one project in particular launched my career. So I'm forever grateful to that project and to those people.
Isn't that how it works?
Yeah.
The people you work with are people who launch your career.
To this day, it's still, I still work with people I worked with 20 years ago. And which leads me to something else. And I'm so guilty of not being this person, but be the nicest person in the room. I'm not always the nicest person in the room, and I know that about myself. But try to be the nicest person in the room. Well, try is a word I don't like. There is no try. Be the nicest
there
person
is no
in the room.
try. Do.
Do or do not. And this is and this next thing I do. Be the person who says yes. Don't be the no. Don't be the one who says no to everything and says can't. Find a way. There's always a way. If it's not the way that somebody wants, then there's another way, but it's still a collaboration. It's like everything in life is yes and a little. Back to Freestyle Love Supreme there.
Hey, it's theater. It's magic. We know how to create magic. This is why we are lighting designers.
That's right. And it changes. And again, that goes back to my work with Jennifer Muller from when I was 5 minutes into my career. If she doesn't like the color, change the color. I learned I can fight for only so long before I will lose the fight. And do I want to lose the fight and never be hired again? Or do I want to lose the fight and maintain a relationship for 30 years? And that's, you have to find that balance. You can only stand and be stubborn for so long. One other thing about advice to people, and this is, young people don't really think about things like this, but think about your teeth, dental hygiene. I know this is crazy and has nothing to do with lighting, but I've heard so many horror stories from people about as they get older, problems with teeth and how much, because, we don't really have great insurance as designers for teeth. So, maintain dental hygiene, everyone. That's what I say.
Now,
there you go.
You are the first guest in 301 episodes of Light Talk that has made that suggestion, and it's amazing. Why has it taken 5.5 years to say the bleeding obvious?
Yeah. Well, there you go.
I thought you were leading us toward the tech table and bad breath as you were collaborating.
I think there is a sponsor here, Steve and Ellen.
That's
I think we should get a sponsor for Tech Table mouthwash.
Yeah, there you go.
Right? There's some sort of flossing thing.
Right.
Anyway, Jeff, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been fantastic. I wish we had more time, but we got to run out of time.
He'll be back.
Yes, we should have a part 2 with Jeff.
Yeah. I hope I said something. I don't know. This went so fast for me, but everyone listening, I apologize if it's the slowest hour you've ever had. I don't even know. I can't even tell you what I said.
It's not.
I don't even know. I have no idea some of the answers. I hope they're correct. I hope I didn't lie.
There's no right or wrong.
I don't
here,
think
my
I did.
friend.
I don't think I embellished. I probably should have embellished a little bit more. It would have been more exciting.
You know, it was wonderful. And I think your advice to the students of today and the professionals of tomorrow is so wise, especially your advice about being an assistant and listen. That magic at the tech table, a lot of it's improv and a lot of it's staying cool. And obviously you're very successful at that. So thanks again.
My
and thanks
pleasure.
for the beautiful work that you've blessed us with. It was just gorgeous, gorgeous work. So anyway, the rocking sounds of the Lumenoids tells us that once again, you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to the podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
If you do decide to litigate, the Snoot Group with the legal team of Sparks, Burnout, and Chase will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers and Sister, coming to you from Palm Springs, New York City, St. Bart, and the Lone Star State.
And be sure to join us next week when we talk about more lighting shenanigans and serve you more of our casserole of nonsense.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Thanks again, Jeff, and bye-bye from Light Talk.
Bye-bye.
Toodles.